Alex here with another video on high conflict child custody. This video is going to be on the division of assets and the division of debts, which doesn't actually apply much to, if it's just a child custody case, it's not really applicable. But a lot of divorces do have children involved, and I've gotten some questions on this, so I'm going to go ahead and cover it. As I mentioned, my personal case, we were never married, so I didn't have to go through divisions of assets and division of debts. But basically, the way it works is, when you're married with someone, you accumulate community property. Your property from before the marriage is not considered community property, so after the marriage you get to keep that. Whatever it was that was yours before the marriage, you keep. There are some exceptions. Stuff can get commingled. Like, for example, if one spouse has a house before the marriage and the other spouse ends up paying all of the, I don't know, the bills, the mortgage, and everything, they can argue that portions of it should be considered, community property. But anyway, generally speaking, that's how that works. Anything that you accumulate after the marriage is, at least in Nevada, community property. We're a community property state. Not all states work this way, so you have to check into this. Once you go to divorce, that community property has to be divided between the two of you. Absent some kind of prenuptial agreement, it's usually divided 50-50. And the way the court goes about doing it can get really hairy because, some assets might hold the bulk of all of the wealth, all the value might be stuck in a house, and other assets like the bank accounts and stuff and such just don't have, any money that comes even close to, equating with a bigger asset. And it can get really complicated as to how the court is going to deal with splitting those types of assets. Usually assets are sold and the proceeds are split between the parties. But sometimes parties come up with other agreements, and they make things work. The only real thing I wanted to stress here is that you can actually get around an equal division, a 50-50 split, if you can show something called marital waste, which I'm going to leave the research up to anyone watching this video as to specifically what marital waste is. But the overarching premise is that one party cannot go and waste assets, community property assets, in preparation of a divorce, just to spite the other side, or even hide assets. I mean, that's a separate issue, is to try and hide assets or funnel money, into secret accounts, so that when the divorce comes, the court isn't aware of the existence of those assets, and then they unfairly deprive the other party of, a portion of their community assets. As I mentioned, the debts should be divided as well, and this can get really complicated. A lot of people think that, well, my divorce judge ordered my ex to pay this credit card. It's not fair that they go after me. The collection agency shouldn't be going after me. The courts ordered them to pay it. Well, that decree of divorce is between you and your ex, and it's binding between you and your ex. It doesn't modify, contractual agreements that you've made with these other companies. They can still go after either one of you, and if you have a problem with that, then you need to bring it to the attention of the judge, of your divorce judge, and you can deal with that through the ordinary channels of however you might deal with it, contempt of court, or whatever. There's probably other tools available to people who are going through this. I used to work in collections, and I remember people all the time, they would be so upset because their ex was ordered to pay those debts because the judge had divided the debts in that way. And I mean, they would think that decision by that judge was binding on us as a company, and really, we're not a party to your divorce. We're not involved in that at all. That's just between you and your spouse, your former spouse. So anyways, I don't work in collections now, but I do remember a lot of these issues coming up when I did work for collections. So I wanted to just bring that to people's attention with the way it's supposed to work, and with some of the exceptions to it. So just to cover everything in a nutshell, when you divorce, your community property is divided and your community debts are divided. You can get around that if you can prove marital waste on one side. If your ex is committing marital waste, hopefully you aren't the one doing that. And then you can also try and use discovery to try to find hidden assets, or stuff, if there's shenanigans like that going on. With that, I'm really not going to cover this anymore unless people have more specific questions. I'm sorry that I myself haven't done a lot of research on how marital waste works and other issues, because it just didn't apply to me. But I have seen them mentioned in Supreme Court publications. So I do know that these doctrines exist and that they can help people resolve issues when there's games and trickery going on in their divorce as far as where the money's going. With that, I'm going to end this video.